Well, welcome back to our Wednesday weekly live, and welcome to Arthur Kalos, who is an entrepreneur who specialises in financial services, also a very successful financial planner, and runs his own dealer group. So just a few balls in the air there, Arthur, with you.
You're never be too busy, Connie.
Yeah, I bet you do. I've also got Bram Legru. Bram is a Belgian-born psychologist, but he also focuses on sales professionals and really helping sales professionals within that space to be successful. So welcome, Bram. I love having both of my colleagues with me every Wednesday. It's so great because it's an opportunity for us just to share about what's been going on the last week within financial services and how we're out there supporting the industry, but also just sharing some information that we see come through our desks and sharing it with the wider network. So thank you both for joining me again today.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure to be here, as always.
So I was reading an article from Professional Planner, and they touched on where they interviewed a lady, a financial advisor by the name of Anne Graham, and she was talking about, you know, that it is prime time for the advice business to really grow and profit with what's going to actually, with what's going on with the industry at the moment. And it just really resonated with me because we're actually running a webinar, the whole three of us running a webinar on the 3rd of August. And we're actually talking about the 3 fundamentals that financial planners really need to have in place in order to be able to grow and profit. And we talk about, you know, are you going to go up? Are you going to go up in revenue, scale, you know, really grow your business? Are you going to go down in revenue? And we're seeing that quite a bit with financial planners at the moment. Or are you actually going to exit? You know, we've actually got a real big loss of financial planners numbers growing, and I think there's this opportunity for advisors that are in the business to really be looking to grow and scale, but also for all the clients that are actually going to be orphaned and that are going to be available for financial planners out there as well. So I think there's a huge amount of opportunities, but I think what's really important is that we actually have the fundamentals or the business strategy pillars in place in order to grow and profit. What are your thoughts, Arthur?
Yeah, look, it's there's a lot of people, I guess, beating the drum now, talking about all the opportunities, and we're the same, and you know, keeping an optimistic mindset about what's, you know, coming up. But to be honest, it just feels like that there's a lot of us in the industry still trying to see through the dust. You know, there's a lot of disruption that's occurred, a lot of change that's occurred, and no one can really see the target state. It's quite difficult because you know, you're going to have to repivot and attend to all the things that you've said. But at the moment, you know, there's already new legislation out around, you know, ongoing service agreements. And so we're still trying to, you know, get through this. And so there's just a lot to cut through and to have that level of foresight and positivity. But the reality is that, you know, the dynamics are encouraging in terms of opportunities for those of the financial planners that do decide to commit long term and do all the right things to give themselves the best opportunity to be, you know, operating long term. But, you know, some decisions need to be made today and be able to cut through, I guess, the current wave of, you know, mandatory activity, which is really slowing them down to address to the more strategic activity that they should be doing and working on their business. So yes, the opportunities are there, but it just seems like right now it's like, you know, when do we find the time to put the pens down and actually have that time to actually, you know, work on it. And so, yeah, I do think the opportunities are there, but right now I think that a lot of people are having difficulty just, you know, getting to it in terms of the strategy part.
Yeah, it's true. And I'm going to pass over to Bram here because I think, you know, with Bram, your background as a psychologist, but also as helping as a coach as well, and both of us coach, but you how do you really get people to help around being able to stop and take the time to stop, but actually get some clarity when the waters are still a bit murky? What do you suggest?
You know what? I really appreciate that question. And, you know, talking about psychology, one thing that I noticed, like, you know, today, for example, here in South Australia where I live, we got a 7-day lockdown happening. And the first thing that I noticed, I have an in-person event scheduled right during this time, and it can't happen. And so I'm using this story as an example to really come back to the point that answers your question. The first thing that I noticed is that I got stressed. I suddenly go into a reactive mode. I suddenly have to kind of drop everything and go to so-called putting out a fire and rescue mode, and kind of really communicate with clients that signed up for the event, that paid money to be there, and so on and so forth. And I think that this example really is exactly what financial planners have been going through for a very long time. So from a psychological perspective, what happens now, if we go in stress mode and we become reactive, what happens in our brain is that we actually are reverting back to the more primitive sides of the brain. And so if we want to kind of, for example, strategize and tackle something, be above the woods and see the woods for what it is, we really need to take time out. And unless you schedule that time somewhere else, away from the office, in an environment that allows you to get rid of, all the distractions that all of us have, the people that tap us on the shoulders, that people that want something of you, that have got questions, clients that ring in, you have to sometimes just pause and shut it all down and give yourself the space and time to go back in proactive mode. Proactive mode means that you're going to the executive center in your brain. It's the neocortex, the frontal cortex. And that's where you will make your biggest epiphany, where you have out-of-the-box ideas. And like literally today, as I found myself getting into stress mode, I literally said, I'm going to walk out the door. I'm going to put on my shoes. I'm just going to go for a little walk, soak up the sun, and allow myself to think, how is this going to help me here? This situation that just, kind of fell in my lap. Because if we keep seeing, let's say the fires, the problems, the challenges, the compliance thing, changes again, COVID, all of that. As soon as we see them as problems, what you're doing is you're not really using your executive center to really find a great solution that will help your business grow and positions yourself for a great growth trajectory. So long story short, I think it's important that we kind of pause and that you put yourself back in proactive mode. And the only way you can do it is by cutting yourself out of the environment that is where you feel threatened. And pause, reflect, build some time, a time bubble for yourself. And sometimes it is good to work with someone else outside that can challenge you and help you kind of go in the brain elevator back to the neocortex, back to the place where you can think differently about the situation at hand, and and turn problems into projects, to turn issues into opportunities, and turn challenges into your biggest growth points. And that's basically my point on that.
It's like that saying, Brahm, there's certain people that always find the problem to every solution, right? And never really progress. And you're absolutely right. I think what that really comes back to is, if you're a financial planner, who do you get mentored by? Who do you partner with? Do you have a coach? I think from a licensee perspective, we've got to play a bigger game. Planners have gone into reactive mode. Just reacting to all this change. They're just trying to keep up, trying to just get through and trying to make it. So as a licensee, or if you're a licensee or self-license yourself, you got to play a bigger game where you got to be a lot more proactive. And so what we do is obviously, we anticipate the results of this change ahead before the change comes in, and we start to push the solutions out. So instead of just being a reactive licensee or a services provider, forget licensee, just services provider generally, a good services provider anticipates the change or the effect of that change occurring, and as it starts to develop the solutions, it starts to push that out to its clients. And that's no different to advisors and their clients. And so you just have to play a bigger game as a services provider, anticipate the outcomes of these changes, and be proactive, and just get it out there and get everyone on board and on the bus, so to speak. And so that they're not paralyzed by saying, well, what do I do next? Whereas a good service provider and a good advisor is always, pushing the solutions out and getting everyone onto the bus, so to speak, to help them get out of that space that you're talking about and into that higher level elevator space that you just referred to, and constantly working on the business. And working on the business shouldn't be, in my mind, pens down for a week and we do an offsite and we work on the business for a week. That's going to decide where we end up for the next 12 months. I think we're in such a fluid environment right now where working on the business has to be consistently through the year. And to have the disciplines to do that on your own when you're trying to cut through the noise and deal with the matters of today is very hard to do. Whereas if you've got someone, whether it be a business coach or a licensee or a mentor or a buddy in the industry to actually team up and actually work on these problems together, that's simple ways to kind of get out of that headspace. And there's many examples where planners from different organisations get together and form a little bit of a think tank. They even share back office resources and buddy up in that space to create some scale between themselves. And so there's a lot of activity of that nature. And so if you're on your own out there, go to your licensee and ask for this, because licensees are just going to be more than compliance. We've got to get the compliance right, but we've got to be more than just that.
Definitely. You know what, Carly, if you permit, there's a beautiful word that all of us here in Australia, we know about, and it's called mastermind. Now, I'll touch on two sides of that here. Arthur, you mentioned, you buddying up with somebody else, and it might be one person or it might be a group of people that you trust and where you can be each other's confidant, right? That is great. So a mastermind in that sense is definitely very helpful. But there's a first one really that I think stress is so important for financial planners to really consider, because when you're in reactive mode, you're not the master of your own mind. You're going through very primitive behaviors where you blow up easily, where you're more irritated, where you're more easily frustrated. And therefore, from a team's perspective, that is not very helpful. No. From your clients, if they can feel that you got a short fuse, that is not very helpful. You yourself don't really like being in that sort of mode. So it's critical that you find something or someone to master your mind when times are challenging. Having said that, there's beautiful brain hacks that we all can use. And I always say, whenever I feel challenged by something, I ask myself a brain hack question, which is, how does it serve me? How does it help me? To say your words, Arthur, how does it help me play a bigger game? How does it help me to serve more clients? If I now feel under the pump, how does it help me to manage my time more productively? You ask yourself productive how questions, and automatically, by default, by the way that you engineered your question, you allow yourself to go back into your executive center rather than being stuck in your emotional limbic system, or even worse, go to fight, flight, and freeze mode, which is your crocodile brain. It's not good where you want to be.
Isn't the technical term the lizard brain, Bram? Is that what it's called? The primitive.
The reptilian brain. The reptilian brain.
Carly,
what do you think? With what you do.
Gosh, I agree. Look, I agree with absolutely everything you say. I think, I truly believe that when we're challenged the most, we learn the most. So it's our opportunity to not look at the problem. And as you were saying, it's about moving forward. And when we ask ourselves action questions, what can we do? How can we do it? We move forward. It's a little bit like all sales professionals should reverse engineer where they want to be. If this is what I want to achieve, whether it be revenue, profit, target, whatever it might be, KPIs, then how do I reverse engineer it back? As opposed to, how am I ever going to get there if I start from the beginning to the end? So I absolutely agree. And I think this is a time for one, which is why we're running the webinar actually on the 3rd of August. And we'll actually share the link to the webinar and the information to the webinar in the comments. But that's exactly why we're doing this webinar, so that we can start to look and support financial planners around some of those pillars, those fundamentals that they absolutely need to get right so that they're looking forward as opposed to looking back, because we have to be more fluid, we have to be more agile, and we have to not be planning a year in advance, but really starting to look at what we're doing monthly, quarterly, etc. on. Of course, we need to have a vision, but our times have changed a lot. So I'm really looking forward to the webinar. Just again, for everyone to note, it is on the 3rd of August. We will be putting a link to the webinar and information in the comments. We would love to have you join us, even if it is for you just to start to think about where you are from a business to where you want to be going forward as well. So are you going up, are you going down, or are you going out? Okay. If you are going up and you want to scale and you want to grow and you want to look at really moving your business forward, then I highly recommend that you come on, join us on the webinar. There'll be Bram, Arthur, and myself. So thank you, Arthur and Bram, for your time again today. I look forward to next week, and then I look forward to our webinar in a couple of weeks' time.
Sounds good. Look forward to it.
Awesome. All right. See you then, Kylie. See you then, Bram.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.